Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz guitarist Leni Stern. She talked to Neon Jazz from her home in New York City about growing up in Germany and her latest album called 3. She discussed a great deal about her music life, getting into music, playing with the likes of Paul Motian and many others. She's got a very rich road paved in jazz artistry, and it's worth listening to. So get to know her and dig this interview, my friends.
So, Leni, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I want to go ahead and just hop right in here. I really enjoyed your CD 3. Talk to me about this project. How do you feel about this project? Are you happy?
I am. Well, there's always things that I wish I had done better and different, but I sort of, after all these records I've made, I kind of trained myself to make a list, and that's what I'm going to do the next record. All the things that I'm not happy with, I'm going to say, okay, next time.
Absolutely. What is your philosophy on releasing albums? Are you trying to make a time stamp of the evolution of yourself, or what are you trying to do?
I'm trying to bring the music to the people. Of course, I like to sort of document the songs as a composer. I don't think you ever really know what you have composed until the song takes on a life and is played by people. And that's when you really understand what it is that the song is. The song sort of develops a life of its own. I had an old composition teacher who said that it's not yours anymore once it's finished. It has a life of its own, and that's sort of like a classical way of looking at it, but there is some truth to that. And so I like to see the songs played and performed. And there's compositions I've written that I've recorded multiple times and that other people have recorded. And it's interesting for me as a composer to see how it takes shape when people play it, when they breathe life into the notes that you've organized.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Munich, Germany. So my first musical training was classical. But as soon as I became a teenager, I rebelled against that, and I started wanting to become a blues guitar player because my brother had an extensive blues collection, John Mayall and, all the English blues guys. And then, soon after that, he discovered that the English guys brought that from America, and we got Albert King and B.B. King and all the great American blues players on his turntable. And I learned about jazz. But the other way I remembered that the other day, Munich was a site of Radio Free Europe, which was an American radio program that they used to send propaganda to the East Bloc, to the communists. And one of their most effective tools was to send jazz over there, which is why I think jazz is still so popular in Poland, in Czechoslovakia. They have these great big jazz festivals because they use jazz as a way to reach people and to try to get them to rebel against the Russians. It was also the site of an American army base, and they had a big band. So a lot of Americans that didn't want to go to Vietnam, they went to Europe and played in the big band. And we had a fantastic big band in Munich. Mel Waldron was the piano player. And in my first band, our keyboard player was a student of his. So I got jazz on the radio as a child because it was the most popular radio station, because it was the most fun. And I developed a love for it.
So speaking of rebelling, for over 25 years, you have put out your own material. You've managed your own career. You're a female electrical guitarist and composer in the realm of jazz. You must be pretty happy with how everything's turned out.
Well, it's not so easy when you are being discriminated against. It gives you a certain strength, and it sort of sent me on this independent path, which I'm immensely grateful for. But the path is the silver lining. I didn't have an easy going as a woman electrical guitar player because people to this day don't really see a woman playing lead guitar when they're looking for somebody to fill that function in their band. That's not the first picture that comes to mind. And so it's been very difficult, but it's never deterred me from doing what I want to do, from doing music. And I think my path as an independent musician, before it became easily done when now we have the internet, and you can also produce records cheaper because we have studios have changed so much. But before that, it was kind of difficult. But, I think more than for my male colleagues, producers and record labels always felt the necessity to shape my music. It's the classic. When I come to the studio with my guitar, the sound engineer will say, let me find a sound for you. And I always say, well, thank you very much, but I have already found it. Spent the last 20 years looking, and guess what? I came up with a thing or two. But it's sort of and it's not me or anything. It's just how people feel like that we need help. I feel like I have turned into the proverbial old lady that everybody wants to help across the street, but I'm doing just fine. Crossing the street real good here.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you got a lot of energy. You globetrot around the world. You've been very active, and you've gone up against a lot of odds. How do you do it? How do you find the energy, and how do you find that gumption in you to keep going and going?
It's in the music. Music is our greatest reward, and what a reward it is. I find happiness in music. I find happiness in communicating with people with music, in my band and in my audience. Music is the greatest, the arts are the greatest thing us humans have, So it's a privilege to be a musician, and it's wonderful. So, these things, these, obstacles, they are really minor as compared to the privilege of being a musician. And, we laugh about it. It's never, really brought me down. It's gotten me good and mad sometimes, and it's gotten me to start my own label 15 years ago. Now everybody does that. And usually the people that criticize you are not the greatest musicians. My first drummer was Paul Motian, and I never got once the feeling that it was any different to him if I was a woman or a man. If anything, sometimes I think he loved to be controversial, and he loved to do controversial things. That's just how he was. He would always come into the club when we played with 2 19-year-old girlfriends, and the rest of the band was green with jealousy. But that's just how he was. And so if people would say to him, you play with a girl, he would like that he would that he played with Jerry Allen too, and he would love to be that. That's just what he liked to be, controversial and different from everybody. I loved him so much. But Michael Brecker, who played in my band for years and years, I never felt like he even a lot of these guys, they call each other man. Said, hey man, can you do this? And they also call me man too. I remember one time when Paul Motian was saying something to the band, saying, hey man, okay man, we gotta do this. And then he looked at me and he paused and he said, okay babe. Remember? Joe Lovano, who was on that gig, said, don't you be calling me babe. But it was
awesome.
It was like that. And, in a way, there's also a little bit of an advantage because this is show business after all, when you're unusual, and it is unusual to be a woman playing electric guitar. But, the downside is there is a lot of responsibility attached to the lead guitar player. It's like your job to bring down the house. When the audience is kind of asleep on their feet, it's guitar solo. It's not bass solo, it's guitar solo. I can understand, band leaders would be nervous. They want to know that they're not going to lose their gig, and be asked back. So there's a lot of pressure. It's pilot.
Yeah.
Or surgeon.
Yeah.
Things where people maybe would not think of a woman first. But, for me, it was kind of my mother was one of the first lawyers in Germany. When I was very little, I used to play going to the office with my brother. That was our game. I would get on the back of his bicycle and we'd ride around the living room until we arrived at the office, which was the couch.
Nice.
That's how I grew up. I never had any option. And also my mother said to my sister and me, if you are married before you graduate, you're out of the will. Which is not what all mothers said to their daughters at the time,
What opportunities opened up for you when you came to America? Was it a big culture shock? Did a lot of doors open when you came over here?
The system of studying music was different in Germany and here in America. America has a more hands-on way to study. I came to study film scoring and composition. You know, in Germany, the traditional way was you study classical composition and then you become somebody's assistant. And you know, go get coffee and you don't really get to do music. I heard about this program at Berklee College of Music that had partnered with the Boston Film School, where the students were scoring the film students' films. So it was completely hands-on. And you had the whole music college at your disposition. There was a film scoring ensemble, and you could hear your stuff played right away. And I initially came for a summer because I was already writing film and theater music in Germany and playing in a band. I just thought it was the best thing that ever happened because, you know, in Germany, back then, you know, we didn't have Avids and computers. If you wanted to rent an Avid, it was thousands of dollars. So you never really heard your music until you recorded it to the film. And, you know, I mean, film music has been made like that for years. But it's, you know, I definitely felt like the Berklee program was the solution to this because I could learn so much from actually trying it out without ruining my reputation, without creating some god-awful stuff. So I fell in love with it. And then at the time, there was just this abundance of rhythm sections and bass players and drummers and horn players that I didn't have in Munich. And so many clubs where you could play, and I got asked to play in bands, and it was just really wonderful. So I still went back to work in Germany, and for a few years I sort of had two homes, Germany and America, and then I started working more and more in America, and I took some time off. I was an actress at the time, and that's how I started my music studies. I took some time off from the television show that I was starring in, used the money to just take 2 full semesters at Berklee, and after that I went back and I did, I think, 17 more episodes, and then I quit. And just focused on music, because I definitely got the feeling that I couldn't really immerse myself in music the way I wanted to if I kept doing both. And then I also met my husband and got married, and he, you know, we were so much separated because he played with Billy Carbon and then with Miles Davis, and just like running around the globe just didn't work anymore. So since I wanted to really focus on music for some years, I came here and stayed. And I'm still focusing on music.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let me ask you this. For someone that's dedicated your life to music, and more specifically jazz, why do you love jazz?
Because of the interaction with other musicians, because of the improvising, and because it's like it's the best thing you can do with a person is play music with them. And in classical music, you know, where I was brought up, is you just perform sort of for yourself. It wasn't that same interaction. And then, you know, there's the groove. You know, we Germans, we're not known for the groove. I found that here. And then in Africa, where it actually came from to here.
Sure. Yeah, without a doubt.
So much fun. But that's what I heard in the early blues records, which is what drew me away from classical music. I said, what is that?
That's awesome. You know, you're a very accomplished artist. You've done so much over your career in the arts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I want to know this, to get to the essence of you. Everyone has a version of you, your family, your friends, and your fans. But you are the one living your life. Who do you think you are?
Well, I am a musician first, an artist, writer. That's who I am. I'm a musician. I'm an artist. That's how I see myself.
Perfect. Leni, thank you for opening up about this new album, giving me an insight into your musical life and your career. I really appreciate your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Germany, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Leni for her time, her stories, and her cool. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.